Welcome to the Plant Centered and Thriving podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kitchens. I am so grateful you're here today, and I'm super excited for our guest. Her name is Mary. She is a homeschool mom of 3 kids, ages 11, 14, and 15, and she lives in northeastern Pennsylvania. She's also a worship leader and a singer at her local church. And the reason Mary and I, how we got to know each other, she reached out to me to help lower her cholesterol, but most importantly, to heal her relationship with food over dieting for over 30 years. So we're going to touch on diet culture and dieting. And also too, as I said, she has 3 kids, she homeschools, and she is plant-based. And so how she navigates, feeding a family of 4 or 5 and all that great stuff. So welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to have you. And I know what you're going to say. There are so many listeners out there who have a family and they're like, what in the world, do I do? How do I meal prep? How do I meal plan? So let's dive into that first. And then I definitely want to touch on more of your story, your journey, and so that our listeners can get to know that as well. So let's back up and tell me about your journey, maybe how you arrived to eating a more plant-based type diet.
Sure. Well, I always didn't really care for meat. Growing up, I would be the one that would push the meat to the side and hide it under the potato skin or, try to find some alternate thing to eat. And I didn't really know very many plant-based eaters, really none, until I was in college and I was part of the veterinary technician program. And I worked at a vet hospital, and this vet, one of them was so amazing. I'm in my early 20s and he's 45, and I'm thinking, of course, that's so old, right? But he's not old. He looks amazing. He has energy. He is the most positive person you've ever met. And then I'm seeing these other vets I'm working with who are younger than him, who are extremely unhealthy and on all these medications, and they just seem kind of down and depressed. And it was just such a difference, and the only thing, really I could see was that he was plant-based. I mean, he brought all his meals. He didn't eat from the Roach Coach truck that pulled up every day. He would run marathons. He just lived such a healthy lifestyle, and it just showed. He was so just full of joy and positive and healthy and vibrant, so that really piqued my interest. And I have kind of always throughout my whole life gone back and forth between eating plant-based and then eating a more conventional diet or standard American diet, and I didn't feel good. I have a lot of GI trouble. The doctors couldn't really figure out what was going on with my gut, so they just said, oh, well, you have IBS, which to me wasn't really an answer, because there wasn't at that time really any treatment. You could try some drugs and stuff, but it wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
Eating the conventional American diet was not working. So when I was 8 years old, I had my yearly physical, and they did some blood work. And I remember the doctor saying to my mother, her cholesterol is high, she's 8 years old, and she's fat, and you need to put her on a diet. And I literally told the doctor, that's the pot calling the kettle black, because she was extremely, I mean, it's me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I know you.
No filter. So, I was like but it really, really hurt. And it just started. I mean, my mom signed me up for Weight Watchers. You could, if your parent, approved and your had a doctor note at the time. And it just started a lifelong obsession with dieting and also dealing with these IBS symptoms. And I wasn't getting any healthier. I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So in college, I was hospitalized because I had lost 50 pounds the first semester. My intestines were bleeding, and I was eating baby food for 3 months. And I kind of got over that hump. But then it happened again when I was 27. I passed out in a rest area driving through Virginia from loss of blood. And it was so bad. My gut was a train wreck.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thin. None of this time was I, quote unquote, diet culture's version of thin.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I was malnourished, which was really, the problem. I wasn't getting the wide variety of nutrients I needed for
Yeah.
my body to heal itself.
That's a really great point because malnourishment, it doesn't matter what size you are, malnourishment can come in any body, no matter what the body size is. You weren't, quote, diet culture, what diet culture deems as thin, but things were still going on. Like your body was not functioning properly. You were not getting the nutrients you needed, and
Yeah.
your body was screaming for help.
Yeah, it really was. And that was, a big wake up call for me. So I, started eating nothing processed. I did allergy testing and eliminated my food allergies. But the one thing that was, on my health blood work was that cholesterol. And it had been high since I was 8. And here I am 38. And it's nothing I've done has changed that. So that's why I reached out.
Yes. Yeah. So Mary and I worked together for a period of time. And I want to highlight, Mary, going back to when you were 8 years old and you hear the doctor saying what, they did towards you with, your cholesterol being high, with you being overweight. How did maybe your mindset shift, like with your outlook on yourself, your relationship with yourself, and even your relationship with food? Like, did you notice a change in that? Because oftentimes as kids, we're not really maybe aware of that, especially at a really young age,
Yeah.
until maybe there's a comment made or a doctor says something or a parent. So how did
Yeah.
that maybe shift for you?
Well, I don't think I had thought about it before that, because even like looking back at pictures of my childhood, like you can see like I'm so happy and bubbly and like outgoing and like all these pictures up until, that point. And then every time after that, all the pictures, I'm not smiling, I'm not putting myself out there, I'm not enjoying myself. And it was really hard, hearing my parents tell me, oh, well, don't eat that because that will
Mm,
make you fat, or you put too much butter on your toast. Or it was like constant nitpicking over the food on my plate. And it was really, really difficult. Even at my high school graduation, my mom said, you put the potato salad back. You can't have that. Like
mm,
it just, and I know she meant well. She didn't, she was doing what she was told. And it was very, very different time that they
yeah.
grew up in, and so but it did it like, I think back now when I look at my pictures in high school and you think back and you're like, wow, I wish I was that fat again. Cause that was
Yeah.
not,
Sure.
that
Right.
was like, what was I thinking? Like, it was so crazy to, I really wasn't, you know, and so it just started like this constant thinking and judging every single thing that was on my plate, and it just formed this constant narrative in my head. And that was really, more than anything, okay, the cholesterol lowering or, losing weight or having more energy, those are all great things, but if I could just stop that narrative in my head, I would have paid $1 million,
Yeah. Yes.
anything to just shut that off.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing when we had our very first call. And I said, I just want food freedom. I want to stop questioning every single thing that I eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you were doing that for 30 years,
I know.
constantly
And I
questioning.
got sucked into, everything out there, all of those different diet plans and network marketing things. And it wasn't serving me, you
Mm,
know.
yeah. And I know a lot of listeners can relate to that as well, as, whether it's similar to your story or something different, we kind of get sucked into like, oh, well, I need to be dieting. I need to be chasing after maybe a particular number. And also too, that constant narrative, that constant overthinking or questioning or second guessing, what it is that we're putting into our mouth. If we're exercising, if we're not exercising, it creates this really toxic relationship with ourself. Our mindset is, totally off the wall. What we're saying to ourselves day in and day out is not positive. It's not encouraging. It's incredibly, probably disgusting, would be a good word to describe it.
It
So,
is. And I would never talk that way to my friend. Like, why am I talking that way
yeah,
to myself?
yeah,
You know?
yeah, absolutely. So then you're in vet school and you meet this, it was a veterinarian, right? He was
Yeah.
plant-based. And it's like, oh, interesting. Like it sounds like you had maybe had this like slight pull to not eat as much meat, or kind of you just leaned more on plant-based, maybe growing up. But kind of, yeah, walk us through sort of what happened from there as you saw that, oh, wow, he's living maybe a really high, like vibrant life.
I actually signed up for a local person who did food delivery, and it was all plant-based. And this was back before now we have, all these meal kits and stuff you can get delivered. But it was just a local person who was into nutrition, and she made these plant-based meals. And I signed up for that because my mom at the time was battling hepatitis C and cancer. And so our foods were a lot of frozen dinners or takeout. It was all nutrient deficient and processed.
Yeah.
And so and I was working and I was going to college at the same time. And I thought this would be great. It's already done. I get every week, I can pick what foods I want to eat. It was all plant-based. And I thought it was really funny because that year when I got my physical was the first time my cholesterol ever lowered 15 points.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, okay, nothing else has ever worked, but look at this. And I wasn't even trying. That wasn't my focus. I just wanted to eat stuff that wasn't going to make me sick and, that I felt better eating. I tried going plant-based, off and on, throughout my entire life, but it really wasn't sticking.
So it sounds like you started to make that like just a deeper connection with what you were putting into your body and how you were feeling. And it's like, wow, these meal deliveries, you were feeling good. Obviously, it made you feel good to eat more plant-based. And then too, you end up getting your labs done. You're like, oh, interesting. It's down 15 points, and you weren't, like you said, you weren't even trying. It just sort of happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fast forward to where you are now, you have a family, there's 5 of you. There's a lot of moms in here who are feeding a family. They're either transitioning themselves or they already are plant-based. So tell me how you sort of approach plant-based eating with your family, because it's also sort of been a transition for them in a way as well.
Well, when I first signed up with you, I challenged my family and I said, could we do this for 30 days? Everybody. Make my life easier. I've been cooking for you guys for 15 years. Could we cook for me? Could we just,
Yes.
let's try this. Just do this with me. And they all agreed. And even my husband was excited to try it. And so we did as a family, we meal prepped and grocery shopped and did everything. And for 30 days, they had no animal products whatsoever. So my husband was hooked. He's like, I feel like I have more energy. And that was huge for him because he works construction and he has 12-hour days and a 3-hour commute. So anything that can give him energy at work and to do this, was really important to him. My one son, who's like a complete carnivore, he was like, you know what, I actually feel a little better.
Ah,
My daughter loved it and she was totally on board. And she's also like me with the gluten, dairy, and egg that they bother us. My youngest tends to be a little more picky about what he eats. He has some texture issues. But I will say, he is now, here we are almost a year later, he will now eat beans. He will now eat mushrooms. Like, not that he's like in love with them, like this is what he'd pick if he could, but he will eat that.
yes.
So then after those 30 days, I said, okay, like, what do we want to do? And I think it's really important to talk to them about it. In the past, whenever I would choose to eat plant-based, I would never tell anybody because I didn't want the judgment. I didn't want where you're going to die from protein deficiency. Where are you getting your iron? Like, I didn't want to deal with all that. So I actually was plant-based for an entire year before I had a major life-altering surgery. And I didn't tell anyone. Nobody in my house even noticed. I'm like, how do you not notice that? Like, I don't know. I guess either I'm very good at hiding it or they're not observant. I don't know, one or the other.
Sure.
And so this time was different because I really wanted them in my corner. I wanted to bring them on board. I wanted them to understand why I was doing this. And so like I was really kind of shocked at their support. It was really, really nice. It was, for this journey with them. And so now here we are almost a year later, and my husband will eat plant-based all the time, except for his morning mocha coffee because he wants half and half in it. And I'm like,
Sure.
that's what you want to do. My daughter eats with me, everything, no problem. For my two boys, I tell them I will get you 1 dozen eggs, 1 pound of sandwich meat, and 1 pound of cheese. And that's your stuff for the week. So
Hmm.
eat it all in 3 days, it's gone. You make it last a week, fine. But I've also told them, like, okay, you're old enough, you're teenagers now. If you want something that's not plant-based, you can cook it yourself.
Nice. Yeah.
So, we definitely have come a long way. I certainly don't want to put food in the light of good versus bad food, because
Mm.
that is just, that's part of that narrative in my head that I grew up. Well, this food's good and this food's bad. And I want so much better for them. I don't want
Yeah.
to have the challenges that I did. So I'm really, if I'm trying to honor myself by eating the way that it makes me feel best, but also understanding that this is a choice they have to make as well. So if they want to eat something that I wouldn't, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
their
Yeah. And you're giving them that option too. And I think what's great, and just to repeat what you said, is like, you're not demonizing any particular food. You're not saying there's a good food and a bad food. You're really just putting all foods on level playing field. But for you in particular, it's like you're eating with what aligns with you and your body best. And also too, you do all the grocery shopping, you plan all the meals. And so there's also, it sounds like, a lot of transparency and communication with your kids of like, hey, this is what I'm buying. This is what we're having. And it's kind of up to you when and how you want to eat this. And again, you're not bringing diet culture into your household, which I think is also really, really powerful.
like I brought sourdough rolls, sourdough cinnamon rolls, and to an event, and it launched this entire discussion by people into keto. And it was so
Mm,
sad because the one person was like, well, I want to eat keto to lose weight and I'm losing weight and that makes me happy. And it's okay if I can't poop.
ah,
I'm like, like
yeah,
you're putting your literal health on the line
yeah,
for a number on the scale because you think that you should look this way. And I'm not forcing anyone to eat these things that I brought, but yet, it just automatically starts into the, well, what are you doing? What are you doing for dieting? What are you doing for dieting? What way are you eating
yeah,
now? And that's really, it's something that is a daily,
yes.
a daily, you know, not challenge, but just something you have to walk through and, you know, think about how you're going to respond, I guess.
Yeah. I remember talking with that about you a lot when we were working together. And how do you feel like, and for someone listening who kind of is also in that situation, is maybe goes to an event or is with family, and there's a lot of maybe that diet culture talk or dieting talk. What's maybe one thing that you feel like that you do well, or that you're trying to do to sort of maybe protect yourself? What do you feel like is helpful for you in particular?
Well, I think it also varies by the day. And a lot of our journey has been extending myself grace and really unpacking why I think things are why I do things. And so, some days I do just keep quiet. Other days I bring food that I would eat. Sometimes I do eat what's offered. Like it varies so much, but the point I think is that I'm trying.
Yeah.
And, one of the things, like we had my aunt's funeral and we were looking through pictures of everyone, everybody brings out the big crates and, it's a good time looking at the pictures. And it was just so sad because two of my sisters were like taking the pictures of themselves and running away with them and ripping them up. Or they were saying, oh my gosh, I was so ugly, or all of these horrible negative comments about themselves. And I just stood up and I said, look, I said, what you're telling yourself, your daughters are going to tell themselves. I said, do you want your daughters to feel the way that you feel right now looking at these pictures? I
Yeah.
said, you haven't said a single positive thing about you. I said, I looked at that picture and I thought, wow, she looked beautiful in her prom dress. I didn't think your hair looked ugly. I didn't think you looked fat. None of those thoughts occurred to me. I said, but you are speaking out loud these horrible things about yourself, and your daughter is standing right here next to you.
Yeah.
I was like,
Wow.
and it has to stop. I was like, I'm not going to stand in this room and look at pictures anymore with you if you don't stop. Now I can
Mm,
say that because that's family,
sure.
but like, so it is, it does depend on on the situation.
Yeah.
I think also, how much have I poured into myself that day? If I'm choosing foods that make me feel the best, if I'm sleeping, if I'm going for my walks with Banshee, if I'm taking my quiet hour and reading, if I'm doing those things, then I have a better ability to stand strongly in doing what feels best for me.
Yeah.
And when those things start falling by the wayside because I get too busy for my quiet hour, or, I didn't meal prep and I'm just grabbing whatever's in the fridge because I'm starving, and hangry Mary is not a pleasant, not a pleasant person. When I stop putting myself first and I stop
Mhm.
doing the things that I need to do to feel my best, I am not as strong standing up for the way I want to live my life. Because then that narrative starts in, oh, well, you're a hypocrite. You're not perfect. You're not doing what you're preaching. And so, you really can't stand up to the world if you're not pouring into yourself and what you
Yeah.
need to do every day.
Yeah. Amen to
And it's
that.
not selfish. And that's a really hard thing. Like, as a Christian, I really want to serve others, and be kind and those kinds of things. And so it can be hard. And even as mothers, regardless of your religious background, you are putting other people before you constantly, day in
Yeah.
and day out. And it can feel selfish at first, to take care of you.
Yeah.
But I would think my children would rather have me around longer. You
Hmm.
know, my biological mom and my adopted mom both died very young from cancer, and I think I would rather have them taking care of themselves
Yeah.
and possibly had a longer time with them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all that, Mary. I know that your story is going to resonate with so many people listening to here today. So many people, so many moms who are in the similar situation that you're in. And I want to highlight what you said kind of in the beginning as you were shifting to a shifting again, trying plant-based again with your family, how you and your kids are older. So this was probably helpful as well. But you were very purposeful and be like, hey, mom's been cooking for you for a really long time. Now it's time to maybe figure out like what I want to do. And if plant-based is something that maybe this family can do. So let's just give it a try for 30 days. I love that you were so transparent and so open about that. And it sounds like the family was full on board with supporting mom through those 30 days. And then, from there, sort of people were, making the decisions that felt best to them. And it sounds like a lot of them enjoyed what you did and are still enjoying it. But I really do love, and I think that's really important for the person listening whose kids are older, maybe are able to understand like that it being open and transparent about what it is that you want to do and maybe the shifts that you're going to make for your family can be really helpful. So helpful in understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. If anyone wants to just connect with you, or maybe they have a question from, what you said, or maybe they're also struggling and just kind of want to reach out, where would be the best place for them to do that?
Probably Instagram. It's Mary Soul Jive.
Okay. And we'll definitely put
Um,
that in the show notes so they can connect with you if
Sure.
they want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely check Mary out. She's got a lot of fun stuff on there and always, oh my gosh, so many food ideas all the time. I love it.
Thanks.
All right, Mary. Well, thank you again. It was great having you on. And
Yeah. Thank you for asking me. It's such a pleasure always to see your beautiful face.
yes, well, same. All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Until next time, keep thriving.